Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
The nose on that
is incredible, isn't it?
Bloody hell.
Wow, that's just like coffee and chocolate. Maybe a little bit of leather in there as well. Come out for that.
On first taste, you get a little bit of licorice coming through as well.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, that's thick.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Let's not keep the listeners in suspense as to what it is we're drinking to open this week's show with. So this is from Thornbridge Hall, the Thornbridge Hall collection. This is the Heather Honey Imperial Stout, which is no longer available to buy, and was part of the package that Miles Lambert and I won at last year's Big Beery Night. It was one of the beers that we got given as part of that package.
So you and Miles got a bottle each of this one?
We did end up with a bottle each of this one as well, and a bottle each of the one that we're going to be doing later as well. So these are discontinued beers from Thornbridge.
So fitting quite nicely with the theme tonight?
That they do, indeed, which is all... When we get onto it a bit later on, it's going to be about beers that you might never get to drink again.
Yeah, this is... amazing. I mean, this has come out of the fridge about 15-20 minutes ago, so this will warm up as well.
Yeah.
The aroma already, though.
I said that the minute I popped the cap on it. I was like, my God, you can smell this from almost the other side of the room.
It's very layered.
Yeah.
Like red wine now.
This is an interesting... The best before on this is December this year. So this is obviously quite a few years old now.
Yeah.
As well in the bottle. But I'm just going to read this... I'm just going to read the bottle out because the explanation on this is just... It just makes your mouth water. Just reading this out. So Heather Honey Stout was brewed using a single temperature infusion mash, utilising a complex malt grist including English chocolate, brown and peated malts. English Fuggles, American Palisade and Willamette hops were chosen for fruity and earthy flavour. Additionally, we added locally sourced Heather honey from Sheffield Honey Company. The stout was matured for 6 months initially matured for 6 months, a third in brand new French oak casks, a third in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks, and a third in former red Bordeaux wine casks. It was then blended back together and conditioned for a further period to allow the flavours to meld. It has been conditioned in bottle using champagne yeast and more Heather honey.
I mean, I hadn't read that out. I hadn't read that before I tasted it. I mean, I wouldn't have got all of those different things. I mean, I was getting a bit of red barrel coming out, but I mean, that is just... why? What made them think this was a good thing? I mean, it's a great thing to do, but to do 3 different barrels, put them all back together, then further conditioning, and then think, let's do some more conditioning in the bottle as well. Because the only bottles I know that have champagne yeast are some of the Belgian beers, and this has. But this, I'm not really sure what it's added because the champagne yeast is. We haven't suddenly got lots of exciting life to it. It just feels perfectly balanced in its mouthfeel, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, and I suppose you could say it's this is probably a masterclass.
This is the labour of love, surely,
of brewing.
Yeah,
this is, isn't it? And again, it's one of those things that when people question Thornbridge and their place in the brewing industry now, bearing in mind that this beer was probably brewed 5 or 6 years ago.
It's got to have been, the process got to have started then, because I mean
that was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
In terms of what it's producing.
Yeah.
Surely. So, yeah.
I mean, I tell you what though, it's amazingly drinkable.
10% as well.
Yeah. Just put
that one out there. It's
amazingly
10%.
drinkable. That is.
Yeah. But I've been talking too much. I've not really had a chance to drink it. So while I drink some of this, you can share your beery adventures this week, mate.
Okay, no problem at all. Well, we met up with our respective children, and Michelle came along with us as well. My friend Carl, who's a listener of the show, his wife Hannah, and some other friends, and we all went over to the yearly Harridgetown Brewery Beer Festival at the Redoubt Fort, which is over 200 years old. Very traditional cask-led beer list. I think we both commented that a few more dark beers wouldn't have gone amiss on the list. I think by the Saturday there was only one left, which we did both enjoy, but we could have done with a few more
we
to break it up.
And sorry to jump in, but I wanted to comment about this on this week's show. That just let it down for me a little bit, because I think I said to you, by the time I was on my 6th golden ale, they were all just tasting the same.
Yeah, no.
And I just needed something just to break up the monotony of light coloured beers, and the fact that there was only one dark beer on didn't really satisfy that yearning.
I completely agree, and I did notice you went back to Paul with some constructive feedback on the Sunday. I did something similar on Twitter yesterday. I think that maybe they were catering for the casual audience who work very much on it's summer, I must be having light coloured beers. But I would definitely have appreciated more on the dark beers as well. And a bit like yourself, I often think the condition of dark beers works better on a cask gravity beer festival.
Absolutely, yeah.
Than all the others. Having said all of that, again, like we said last year, the venue is awesome for a beer festival. Sitting in this vault, which has been completely renovated by volunteers, is an amazing experience. Every year I go. This must be about the 8th or 9th year this has been in going. Missed the first one, and I'm always in awe about the building. Always in awe about the building. I think it's just a fabulous place to have a beer festival.
I completely agree. It's for me, it's up there. You know, we always speak very highly of Indie Man being held in Victoria Baths, but this is up there with that for me.
Definitely.
In terms of stunning location for a beer festival, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You know, they've got the volunteers. I think because of the building, the beers came out at a very nice temperature as well, because they're all big stone walls. These barrels are kept away nicely in the shade. Really, really nice to go back there again. But for me, that was really the only, outdoorsy sort of beery adventure I had in the last week.
Same here. I didn't do anything other than that. The one thing that I will say about it as well is one of the other beers that I tried while I was there, and I do just want to give a shout out for this one. It was one of the keg beers that was from Ollie Watts, who appeared on one of the old Beer O'Clock Show homebrew specials. He's a small brewer who's now based in Suffolk, and he had a keg beer on called Paddington, which was a pale ale, 4% something percent, loads of lime flavour. I think he used like lime zest in it as well, and almost to the point where the lime hid the hop that was dominant in it, which was Strachey Ace, which neither of us are fans of.
Yeah, it didn't.
You were still getting quite a lot of it.
Didn't hide it enough for me.
Yeah, it hit it enough for me. It was like drinking lime juice, but it was great to try one of Ollie's beers, and it's great to see that he's doing beers on keg.
Yes, yeah,
and they're getting on at local festivals as well.
And the local festivals are putting them on as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So congratulations, Ever, to Harristown Brewery Beer Festival putting that on. I'm sure it raises a bit of money for the Friends of the Readout Faults as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Any other beers that you tried in the last week, Steve?
Just a couple that I want to mention. I had a can of Solstice Session IPA, which is from a brewery called True North, which was just a stunning little beer, about 4.2, 4.4%, something like that. Just really, really drinkable. Really enjoyed that one. Picked that one up from Beer Central. Also had the latest incarnation of Buxton. Seemed to be doing a series of pale ales with different hops.
Okay.
So I had their latest one, which was with Simcoe, Amarillo and Southern Cross. And on Untapped, I simply said it was like drinking lemon cheesecake. It was lovely. It had this lovely malty biscuitness to it, and then the hops were just bringing out this beautiful lemon flavour, and it was just what you come to expect from Buxton in terms of a quality beer.
Yeah.
And then finally, a beer that isn't a new one, but is always worthy of a mention. I revisited Magic Rock's Common Grounds for the first time in a few months, and yes, I can confirm it still tastes fucking incredible.
You smashed it, did it?
Mate, that beer is so good.
Yeah, God, yeah.
And it's so underrated.
Yeah, I can't fault it.
And I'm so pissed off that the Weld and his wife seems to be drinking the Kentucky barrel-aged version of it at the moment.
We're not.
And we're not. It seems to be available everywhere else in the country but where we are. So they were the standouts amongst quite a few beers that I've had this week. What about you, mate? Any real standouts for you?
Well, yeah, the first one was one I went to the Pelt Trader at Cannon Street, and I've heard a few people talk about this beer before. It's the Schuffelhofer Grapefruit, which is a 2.5% grapefruit infused wheat beer. Now, I've had the original wheat beer. It's quite popular in a couple of the pubs I go to in Cloaking Brothers, but I've never had the grapefruit one, and the Pelt Trade had it on tap. I ended up having 2 of them. And I say my Untapped comments say, "Wow, bloody amazing! Love the grapefruit and orangey citrus flavours. Never cloying. Beer of the summer ?
Oh, really? Now I'm going to maybe have to search this one out to give it a try. Because like yourself, heard a lot of people speak very highly of it.
Yeah. And it really did work. It worked amazingly well. And at 2.5%, brilliant, I thought, for 2.5%.
Well, I take it for you that was a lunchtime visit.
Yeah. Yes, it worked really well for a lunchtime visit.
A couple of pints of that.
Especially when I go to the Pelt Trader, I'm always tempted by like some 6.5% offering from the Colonel, which they often have in there. It was quite nice to have that. I also had something which I had never had before, which was the Old Freddie Walker by More Beer. The Victoria Inn had it on tap. I thought I'd had it at some point. So unless I'd had it pre-2013, Untapped told me I hadn't. It was just it's a lovely, rich, complex old ale. Really did enjoy it, and it's very hard not to just glug it, to be honest. Went down really well, especially on drafts. A little bit cool. I mean, that was on the Saturday evening before we got the Chinese after we'd been to the beer festival, so I'm not sure I needed it, but I had it anyway. And
that made your beer of the month list as well.
It did make the beer of the month list, so it was a very late entry into the beer of the month list.
So and that's now up on Facebook. So if people want to have a look at what our beers of July are, there's a link in the show notes. Head on over and have a look and see what ours were, and share your thoughts with us as to what your beers are.
Spoiler alert: we're quite well aligned this month as well.
For the second month in a row, actually, we were aligned on our beer of the month.
Yeah, so. That should tell you something about the beer that was chosen, I think.
Yeah, and probably not so much of a spoiler to anybody that's listened to last week's show either.
Yeah, just 2 other beers I want to give a shout out to. I had Northern Industry by Northern Monk, and I'd had this before, and I had it about a year ago, and I was a bit nonplussed about it. I was a bit, okay. It's Northern Monk, it's a dark beer. I was expecting this to really be wow. But this has had another year in the cellar, and I thought it was amazing. It had bags of everything going on, lots of those flavours and aromas that you associate with a dark beer. It's under 7%, I think it's 6.5, 6.8, something like that. So it's not a massively strong beer, especially in comparison to what we're drinking now. That was really good. And lastly was the Imperial Hard Shake by Wiper and True. Fabulous end of evening beer. I do like the Wiper and True dark beers, especially. I think especially their sort of milkshake series that they've done a few of them of. Yeah, I think they're really good. I don't really get hold of Wiper and True very often, so when I do, I have really enjoyed them.
It's that one's from the Beer Bods Plus.
That was a Beer Bods Plus.
So I've got that still in my cupboard. I think you've got a bit excited.
I might go ahead of myself.
Got a bit ahead of yourself with some of your Beer Bods beers.
They got mixed up. But you'll enjoy it when you get to that one.
Okay. Well, maybe a few more, because I'm guessing that seeing as the Beer Bods Plus box at the moment runs until the end of October,
that one might be the back end.
I think that's not going to come out for a few months. Yeah,
Yellow Belly last box number 2 was the last one of that one.
Yeah.
But it was a fabulous beer. So,
I'll look forward to that.
But again, it's really weird. I've been looking back on some of the answers we've done on the beer of the month stuff and discussions we've had. A lot of dark beers still making my list on the Monday and on the month thing. I'm getting less seasonal.
I very much am. I mean, like I say, Common Grounds from Magic Rock. For me, at the moment, that's a beer that you can have in the fridge. You can take it out of the fridge, and it's the perfect summer beer because it's just you have it cold and it's like it's refreshing and it's just gives you that big dark coffee hit and it's just perfect.
I used to be very seasonal. I think I'm definitely less seasonal than I used to be now.
And you just drink whatever's available.
Yeah, whatever I think works at the time. And I think with some dark beers, we're packing so much flavour these days.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I may well be turning more towards dark beers because they're not murky.
Well, I suppose they're the ultimate murk, but they're supposed to be.
Well, no, yeah, but they're not murky, are they? They're supposed to look like that. That's what they're supposed to.
And
look
this
like.
is, again, this is just coming out so well. We're eating a bit of cheese with this now as well.
Yeah, and the cheese is just bringing so much. This is the ultimate teaser show this week, isn't it? We're drinking beers that our listeners are probably never going to get to drink along with us, and we're enjoying cheese with it.
True, the cheese they can get hold of. Anyone who's interested, we've got an extra mature, applewood smoked cheddar, and some brie to go with this.
And at the moment, it's working perfect.
It's working rather well.
Yeah. So, any more? We're gradually making our way through it because we are very wary that it's 10%,
Yes.
and the next two beers that we've got are even higher ABVs.
Yes.
But it's beginning to warm slightly.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on the beer?
It's quite a nice. I hadn't noticed it immediately because I think of all the sweetness and stuff. But there's quite a dry finish to it as well, which I quite like. I'm getting a dryness just really at the back end, which again doesn't do anything to stop me going back for it straight away.
I think the fact we've got it slightly cold is just making it imminently quaffable.
Yes. Yeah, because we both drank half of what we had.
Which is worrying. It's a worrying trend.
Well, it's worrying for listeners in the next half an hour to 45 minutes.
It is. I don't think we're going to reach the heights of the now infamous Jackhammer Chaser show, but we might be a little bit on the squiffy side by the time we finish this evening. So let's get some of the important stuff out of the way then. Some news this week. So where to start? First of all, Tiny Rebel temporarily have ceased all canning. And they've issued recall notices after they noticed that lids were popping off of their cans and that some of their beers had some dissolved oxygen in the cans, causing oxidisation and secondary fermentation. So this was a number of batches. It was batches 116, which was Club Tropicana, 122, which was Kutch, 133, which was Club Tropicana, 144, which was Club Tropicana, 145, Club Tropicana 14H, Club Tropicana. They've said they're actually ceasing using their canning line now until they've sorted the problem. Now, this is kind of the second example of this, almost in as many weeks. What's happening with cans at the moment?
Don't know. That's from two brewers who have invested in their own canning lines as well.
Yeah, so these aren't portable.
These aren't the portable ones, which we
know,
have heard stories from.
Yeah.
About being a varying degree of quality with the portable canning lines, but these are guys who've invested. And Tiny Rebel have upscaled quite a lot recently,
Yes,
both with their tap room and bar, the brewery, everything has gone up, hasn't it? So, and that's a lot. But I mean, I'd say they're not canning; they've just stopped.
Yes. So they're essentially producing no products for sales to bottle shops, bars.
Yeah.
Online shops. They're getting none of their products are getting out there at the moment.
That's a lot of revenue.
Yeah,
because they must have had whatever's gone out. There must have been another lot ready to go.
yeah. But it's great that they've taken this decision to say no, we're going to stop that.
Yeah.
We need to sort this quality issue out. That's paramount to us. Once we've sorted that, we'll get our beers out again.
I mean, what is it? I mean, because canning works. We know canning works. There's enough breweries that use it, and let's face it, all the macro breweries use cans.
Yeah.
So it must be, but maybe it's just for some beers, which obviously the macro breweries don't produce because they produce the same beer time and time again. Mm-hmm. The beer stays the same. With the smaller breweries, even with the larger of the independent breweries, they're always trying to push the boundaries. Maybe there are some boundaries which cans just ain't going to work with.
Is it the fruit stuff? Because it would seem that most of the recall here is a Club Tropicana, which, if memory serves me correctly, is a tropical fruit IPA.
Yeah.
That they do. Is it the use of fruit extracts?
It could be, because I mean you still get natural sugars, you still get natural yeast, so perhaps there is something in that as well. So perhaps there are some beers which you may not be able to just
aren't suited for cans.
You know, or at least not the beer that they intended it to be. So perhaps there's a tweaking of recipe. Same as, going to a regional. London Pride in the bottle is different to London Pride on cask. They produce a different beer.
Because it's different ABV.
Yeah.
Which I never knew.
Which we do now.
Which we do now.
You will all find out.
Yeah, but our listeners don't know yet because that's coming in the summer special. Next up, a festival that very much captured our hearts this year, the Manchester Beer and Cider Festival. As people listening to this, advanced ticket sales are now available for next year's event. Thursday the 25th to Saturday 27th of January 2018.
Oh, that's a bit later than last this year.
Yeah, tickets are now available.
Bloody hell.
For next year's festival. I mean, we loved it, didn't we?
Oh, we thought
we had a great time.
Definitely thought it. Is it in the same place?
I'm just quickly trying to skim read. Manchester Central, our home once again. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think that's good because obviously after what happened in March with the terrorist attack.
Yeah.
I'm pleased that it's
still going ahead.
It's still going ahead in the same venue because the venue is awesome and something like that shouldn't put people off using it.
Yeah. But you can get tickets from mankbeerfest.uk available now. A couple of other bits of news. Great to hear another beer podcast launched in the last week. This one actually called The Beer Podcast, and it's.
I can't believe there wasn't one called that already.
I can't believe there wasn't one called that already. But this sees the return of Michael Lally, formerly of Bushcraft Beer, with a new co-host as well.
Oh, so he's not on his own anymore?
No, he's not on his own. And from the one episode that I've listened to, great episode where they interviewed Matt and Gordon from Beerbods talking about cool. the inspiration from behind Beerbods. So again, be a link in the show notes. Have a listen to it because I love Michael's tone and his pacing and his questioning. I think it's one of the things that he does really well.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to see how he works with a co-host. And how they bounce off one another. So I think they're planning to put quite a few out in a short amount of time.
Well, that's what Michael did with Bushcraft Beer as well, wasn't it? Just to see how the land lies, see how it's received. I mean, it's a good idea. He's probably backed up a few anyway, so
yeah,
that'd be good. So, and Matt and Gordon, they've done, especially Matt with Beerbods, they've done a fabulous job with that.
Absolutely. And then finally, from me on this week's news, because I know you've got a couple of bits again. The sad news this weekend that guys that we've just started working with, Hippo Beers, have gone into receivership.
Yeah, that's a real shame, that was. Cause
it is.
Short space of time we did anything with them, they were really prompt to keep in touch with us.
Yeah.
They really engaged with us. I thought we had a lot of support from them for the first Opinions on film as well. They've been going for 5 years. I
know, and a lot of love for them from their local community as well. That said it's a real loss to the beer scene in, I think it's Glasgow, isn't it? Real loss to the beer scene in Glasgow. It did put us in a bit of a sticky situation as well for our next Opinions on films because we were due to be recording that this coming weekend.
Yeah, I almost had to buy the Green King IPA case.
But thankfully,
we were rescued from such a fate.
Our listeners will be pleased to hear that we've got someone stepped up to help us out. So we're going to be working with beer merchants who are putting together. The guys at Beer Merchants are as much into their films as we are.
Yeah.
So we approached them and said, "Can you put us together a box for this thing that we're doing?"
And so they geeked out.
They said yes, and then they geeked out. And essentially, what they've done is they've put us together a themed Raiders of the Lost Ark box. There'll be a link to where you can buy that from in the show notes, and it's going to be all over Twitter because we're recording the next Opinions on films this weekend for release in a couple of weeks' time. If you want to drink along, it's a great box that they've put together for us.
Yes.
And you just get involved. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It'll be good fun.
Yeah. So, mate, what have you got? Didn't you say you had a couple of bits that you wanted to
pick
up?
What's Brewing landed on the doormat.
Brilliant.
So
timing.
We do like that in time for the last episode of the season. The first thing I just want to mention, and it's in an article which we've already mentioned in a previous show about Manchester staking its claim to be the cask capital of Britain, but the word craft is used a number of times in the piece, and craft has speech marks every time in the article. But I did notice today when I was going through Liverpool Street Station, I hadn't really clocked it before. All the adverts for the Great British Beer Festival say you can get craft beer, but on the advert, craft does not come in speech marks.
Oh.
Which I thought was quite unusual. But
in their champion publication,
it comes in speech marks.
They have to speech mark it.
A bit of sad news, definitely for me and anyone who has frequented this particular hostelry in the past. high speed end for cask beer treasure. Now, this may not be the only public house that is going to be, it's going to disappear because of the high speed 2 rail line. The Brie Louise, which is very close to Euston Station, and for me was especially when I discovered it, because it was like going to a mini beer festival. They have 8 or 9 casks on gravity the whole time, as well as the beers on tap. The Brie Louise, it's the current owners. It's their house, their home. The Brie Louise was named after their daughter, who had died a year earlier. So very poignant. That will be closing on the 20th of November. So if you are in the area and it's before the 20th of November, I urge you to pop in. There's nothing flash about it, but the cask beer is always served well in there.
That's a real shame.
It is a real shame.
Like you say, that's a real. Like, so it's not everyone's cup of tea.
No,
but it's a real stalwart of the London beer scene.
Yeah, and because the London Canberra magazine, they always have a bit in there about it, and they've been very supportive of everything that goes on. They've been around a long time now, before the craft in inverted commas turned up. A little bit off the main road as well, which is always quite nice. And it's a Corner Street pub. So I'm presuming if they're going, there's a whole chunk around that area that's disappearing as well.
Well, mate, look, while you've got the paper out.
While I've got the paper out, what page could I go to next?
I think we've got to, haven't we? We've got to have a little look at the letters page.
The letters page, your shout. Now, did you pick up on any of the stories in here today? I'm just going to do a couple of the. Let me do a couple of the small ones.
Okay. I was going to say I tried not to, because I suspected that with the timing of the paper arriving just before recording, we might want to feature it. So I don't want to spoil anything that's about to come. Okay,
well, there are a couple of brief bits in here, and unusually for the camera readers, Roger Protz has had there's a couple of disagreements with Roger.
What?
I know. Sir Roger.
No.
Yes.
They can't be disagreeing with Roger.
Yeah. So, one letter from a Mr. Palmer in Norwich. Why has Roger Protz got such a downer on Green King? Question mark.
I know.
Steve, would you like to answer the question?
Because their beers are shit.
Yes. However, he doesn't answer his own question. He says, but for Green King and other regional brewers, cask beer might have died in the 1970s. It's not all down to camera. Brewers played a small part.
Okay, he might have a point there, but it still doesn't mean that their beers are great.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Roger Prott's article was more about the fact that, and if we take macro breweries out of it, regional brewers were now starting to really dominate the cask scene, which I think is the part of the next letter about the Marston's, Green King, Molson Coors account for 37% of the cask sector, and suggests that this is bad news for drinkers. This guy from Stafford finishes off by saying, it is Camera's recent enthusiasm for only the beers from micros that is bad news for drinkers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But no, because they're supporting new businesses.
Yeah, but they don't not support the regionals. Roger Protz.
The regionals don't need the support. Roger
Protz was having an opinion about how much they own now, both in terms of pub real estate and their beers going into the pub real estate. It's a valid point, but for a lot of people, a hell of a lot of people, they like all those beers. They like the beers from Marston's, they like the beers from Green King. Obviously, Coulson Moors, we're talking about Doom here, aren't we? So, yeah. Doom is now the most popular cask beer in the UK, isn't it? I mean, there is enough people who are drinking this stuff.
I don't know why.
No, it doesn't know why. And
but then that's not a beer that's for us, is it? And
no,
you know.
But I mean, they may well have valid points about the fact that they did help save cask beer in the 70s, in the dark ages. Now, there's a couple of another bits. One which I think you'll quite like, and one which I think you picked up on as well. But I think you should mention the star letter first of all.
You let me read one out.
The star letter, because I think you quite appreciate the ending of that letter.
Okay, so this one's entitled "Footy Fans' Right Result in Krakow." I've just spent 2 fantastic weeks in Poland following the footy, and was lucky enough to see us lose to Germany once again on penalties in the semi-final. I was based in the wonderful city of Krakow, and only late in my stay did I discover the magnificent Tea Time Brewery and Pub. This brews beer in the traditional English way and serves beer by hand pumps, with at least 8 on the bar and a variety of ales also available. Live sport is shown on the big screen on request, and it can also also organise a mean pizza followed by a delicious apple strudel. Talk about being in heaven. I got so excited I forgot to ask for the spark to be removed. And that's from Ray from Ipswich.
I love that bit. I love the bit that he's described the bar I want to visit now.
Yeah, see, that does nothing for me.
Oh, it does for me.
Because I still owe you the football show. We still need to do that. Maybe next season.
I love the fact that he got so excited he forgot to ask for the spark.
There's nothing wrong with a spark.
But do people must actually ask them?
You can. I think you can ask for them to be removed if you're a heathen and you feel so inclined.
Okay, so when you read this letters page, Steve, as you now get the papers, or what letter leapt out at you?
The one that has the title "Craft Row Sorted." You gonna let me read this one as well?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! This was the one that when I glanced at the page, I kind of hoped that you were going to pick this one out. So, the continuing furore around what beers are real or keg can simply be solved by calling them craft cask and craft keg. Didn't we coin a phrase, crask?
Christ solves it all. You only need one label, then.
Exactly, yeah. The cask beers, and both of those were in speech marks as well. Craft cask and craft keg.
Because it's got the word craft.
Yeah. The cask beer is going through secondary fermentation in the pub cellar and served at a cellar temperature of around 13 degrees Celsius. Keg beers being pasteurised in the brewery and then served by gas and often chilled. This should modify those who do not want their beers gassy and cold and have campaigned for them for the last 40 years plus, such as me. And that's from Richard in Loughborough in Leicestershire.
So just wants to expand the word craft to include everything.
Well, but isn't this always been part of the argument that actually cask is the pinnacle of a brewer's craft, being able to produce a good cask beer? And does this not therefore come back full circle to does there need to be a definition of craft beer? And if so, does it need to have speech marks?
I think definitely needs to have speech marks. I think they should probably double up on the speech marks. There's not enough speech marks being used.
Or can you solve it with our now trademark term, crask?
Crask.
Which just about covers everything.
Maybe I should write a letter into camera and see if I can get crask printed.
You so should. I think we need that. That needs to be what we have to do. We have to get a letter on that page featuring the word crask. Because I think that will be it. Anyway, are we done with the?
We're definitely done.
We've done the letters there. Bit of fun there as always. Cameron's expense. Mate, you've finished your beer.
I have finished my beer. I've been having the cheese with it as well.
The cheese is making it go down a lot quicker.
Cheese just goes so well with it. All four of the cheeses go well with this beer. It's amazing. It's an amazing beer.
I've just finished off mine,
and I need to say thanks because you're sharing your one bottle. I think you're a bit of a nutter for doing it.
No, yes and no. When I read the description on that bottle, I was like, "What have I done?
Why am I sharing this?
I should be sat on my own in the middle of winter in a dark room, drinking this to myself." But thankfully, it's still in a big 500ml Thornbridge bottle, so we've actually both got quite a decent pour for that.
We have indeed. So, while I'm thinking about trying to wrestle the next bottle open...
Hopinions, 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 Hopinions.
So this week we asked to sort of fit in a little bit with the theme of the beers that we were going to drink tonight. We asked the question, have you ever had a one-off or a discontinued beer that you wish you could have again? Yes or no? And it's fair to say before this question we tried a slightly different version of the question without a poll and nobody responded, so clearly people like the polls. I think that's what that tells us. But we had 209 votes this week, a fairly small number of votes but lots and lots of comments, which is what we wanted.
Yeah, it's the engagement.
Yeah.
I mean, the polls, anyone, we like looking at numbers, we like stats, that's fantastic, but it's the comments which we get, which is really what we enjoy reading, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've had some great comments this week, which we're going to go through first, before we get on to kind of what our beers are that maybe we're never going to have again. Just before we do that, we are going to talk about the beer that you're currently pouring into glasses.
So I'm pouring from Brooklyn. It is Cloaking Device, 100% Brett fermented porter Asian French oak red wine barrels. This comes in at 10.5%, and it's a because it's 10.5%. Obviously, they need to put it in a 750 milliliter bottle.
Obviously, because you need more of a high ABV beer.
Yeah, and it's at first Brooklyn Cloaking Device's true nature is hidden. All at once, there comes a wave of Brett-driven earthy aroma. So let's see what.
So it's going to have a little bit of funk to it, isn't it?
Yeah. But let's see how, because I won't read all the description yet, because I think the first bit we'd probably be expecting anyway.
It might buy us our views a little bit, and we'll just say at this point that Brooklyn sent us this beer,
Yep.
as well, to try along with a whole other load of swag, which we're fairly grateful for. But actually, the timing of it couldn't have been better because this is a fairly limited release.
Yes, and works perfectly. And I think it's the way we've positioned it is that we have another fairly much rare one-off coming up from Thornbridge. This one in the middle we thought would work quite well.
Yeah,
there's
a bit of a cleanser as well.
But 10.5% cleanser, hey?
Yeah, absolutely.
What could go wrong?
Better than Jackhammer Chasers.
It's definitely got the funky bit on the nose, but very soft.
It's funky on the nose, and then straight away what you get on the flavour is you get a hint of that funk and a hint of sour. But straight away, that's almost washed away with kind of dark fruits.
It's the fruit which comes through for me. You're not getting all. I'm not really getting the chocolate or the roasted malts at the moment, but that funkiness gives way straight away. Yeah, like you say, Black Frost Gatto type.
Yeah,
fruits.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm getting right now.
Yeah,
and again, this feels like because it's Bretted, this has got a little bit more life going on it.
There's a lot of life in there. It's got that really tight bubbles again.
Yeah, like you'd expect from a quality Belgian beer, like say the Marriage Parfait, for example.
Yeah. But the fact that it comes in a dark beer as well, I think I'm slightly less sour adverse when it's a darker beer because I like the dark beers.
Yeah, you're already starting off from I like dark beers. Also, I think the power of the dark flavours, the roasted malts, the chocolate, for you as well, especially, will balance out some of the funky, more Belgium-y, yeasty qualities that you're not such a fan of.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to slowly making our way
and
through
I'll say a little bit more about the description on the back, but the initial bit they've said, that's definitely there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so let's get into some of this stuff that people fed back this week. So there were over... I couldn't count them all in the end. There were well over 70 different beers mentioned in the comments that we got back from.
You haven't counted. What have we got here for? If you're not going to count them all and list them, where's my list?
There's only so much time in a day, in between putting the poll live and recording the show.
Dreadful.
So
there was a lot of different beers mentioned.
Just as a bit of a summary, there were a couple of trends. That
there was definitely, wasn't there?
Straight away, one of those that were collabs featured really highly in this.
Yeah. And
in particular, one-off collabs that maybe have then been rebrewed but weren't quite as good. And the one that was mentioned a few times, and this was from Jamie Haychat, Merchant of Shite. Just because I love Jamie's handle, I want to say that every week. Merchant of Shite. Said, to be fair, Dark Star Brew and Magic Rock brewed a beer called Rockstar American Brown Ale the first time round, and it was glorious. However, the Dark Star only rebrews haven't been quite as good. But there was a lot of comments in that sort of vein that a lot of collabs and that maybe one-offs, and then they tried to rebrew them and they didn't quite hit the same mark. And the other real trend that came through was there was a lot of reference to Colonel beers.
Yeah.
As well, which I think we know was probably inevitable. That, and in particular, the one that came up time and time again was with Double Citra, which I think was a couple of years ago now, hasn't been seen since, and I remember that was probably the first case of what I can remember being kind of Twitter FOMO of people losing their shit over a beer and trying to get that beer again.
Well, this poll and this question played quite well to a Colonel because they don't set out necessarily to do it deliberately. But if anyone who's ever tried to find one of their beers on Untapped, you can't find it by title. So you think, okay, hops, find the hops. Oh, found the title. and the ABV is different. It's hardly ever exactly the same beer. So I can see why that plays, but the double Citra definitely got more than one comment. I'm not even sure I've had it myself, but the more I saw about it, the more I wanted it.
Yeah. Hopefully it will come back.
It's Citra. Love
and
it.
It's double.
And it's Colonel.
Ticks every box.
Ticks the boxes for me. I want that in a 500ml. I don't want that in 330.
Fuck 500 mils. I want it in one of their big bottles that they do for their saisons and stuff. The other one that was literally blew away the responses was the Magic Rock Cloudwater JW Lee's Threes Company.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, I thought you might. So, and the list of mentions here was Brett Preston at Brett and Beer, Jay at Stricker66, Son of a Gun at Son of a Gun, Phil PE at Phil Elliott, Andrew Clark at Burnham, Tim Hickford at T_Hickford, Paul Brearley at The Real Bryman, and Sean Paul at Sean Paul. Every one of those people saying that beer was just stunning. You're not going to disagree with that, are you?
No.
That was your beer of the year.
That was my beer of the year when I did Golden Pines last year.
Yeah.
And again, I read it and it just brought it all back to me saying, I don't know why we can't have the chance to have that beer again, because it was so brilliant. And it was everything I wanted out of a beer. Everything I wanted out of a beer.
It was, and it was just before the tide turned and everything turned to murk.
Yes.
It was a little bit hazy, which was fine.
But
with.
a really, really
Back
fine
then,
haze.
Yeah. And
really
then
fine haze.
and then everything just went.
It sort of, it was like basically the sweet spot between, New Kids on the Block, Cloudwater, the guys who are now sort of like maybe teenagers with Magic Rock, and you had your old hand with JW Lee's. Now JW Lee's yeast must be lending something somewhere, because Cloudwater have carried on using various strains of that, haven't they?
They have, yeah.
But yeah, for me that was fantastic beer. I can't disagree with any of those 8 mentions at all, because I thought that was a brilliant beer last year.
And while we're talking Cloudwater, another one that came up time and time again, I say time and time again, 3 times, people mentioned the version 3 of the Dipper. As well. So Michael McCall at Lebowski 49 was the first beer that I thought wow with. So that Mark H 123 at _Mark H, Cloudwater Dipper version 3 never bettered in my honest opinion. So
while we're talking about those, I mean, I'm going to sort of throw in 2 things. One, the Dipper 3 is probably my favourite. However, Dipper version 2 is my highest rated. I never had Dipper version 1.
Yeah.
So Dipper version 2 was the first one. That was a bottle you picked up for me, and you were down locally in my bit of Colchester at the time, and you gave me this bottle which is all wrapped up, and I couldn't wait to get home to have this bottle. And that was before the hype about the whole Dipper versions had really kicked in, which I think kicked in more with version 3 onwards.
I think version 3 was what kick-started it.
Yeah.
Because everyone lost their shit of that beer. And, I've gone on record before to say that I thought it was the best one.
You've said that quite more than once, and I would
But
probably...
then I go back through my Untapped and I think I rated 4, 6 and 8 higher.
Yeah, which is weird, isn't it? Because, I mean, I think Dipper version 2 I really loved. And if this poll had a slightly different question, it'd be like, I never got the chance to even try Dipper version 1. So V2 was my first iteration of it.
So you haven't that original benchmark.
I haven't got the original benchmark, but version 2 is the highest rated one I've got on Untapped.
Yeah.
Even though I think in my head the version 3 was the better one.
Well, like I say, I think it's the one that kind of became the pinnacle of that series that all others were then measured against.
I would say that most people measured it against version 3 as well. Yeah.
So there was a few others that were mentioned at least twice. Interesting, one of the breweries that came up time and time again on this poll was Siren. There was a lot of comments about Siren beers. 2 in particular was Tickle Monster and $10 Shake. Tickle Monster was their double mango IPA, and $10 Shake was, I think it was the beer that they did with Brewdog for one of the collaborations, and again that was a milkshake IPA type thing. But interesting that Siren just kept coming up again and again in people's, and even Siren picked up on that on Twitter today, and they were like, "We're getting a lot of mentions here." So it shows how. Again, I suppose it goes back to that show that we did earlier on in the season about Siren. They produce a lot of beers that people kind of forget.
Yeah.
The amount of beers that they produce and how good they are.
In a fairly short space of time as well, what they've done.
Yeah.
And generally they're very consistent with what they turn out as well.
Yes.
I think.
Absolutely. And again, that's the key, isn't it? Consistency.
Yeah. I trust Siren.
Yeah.
I trust Siren. So if I see a Siren beer on tap, bottle, at a beer festival, I might not even check to see what it is. If it's the only one there, I might think, well, I'm probably going to like it anyway.
Yeah.
I'll go for it. So I can see why. I mean, these are obviously, Tickle Monster and $10 Shake were obviously, specials of some kind. But, I think that's good though, because they're one of the people one of the brewers I think sometimes get overlooked.
Absolutely.
Not very noisy.
They're not very noisy. They just do good beer.
Yeah.
So let's before we get into some of the comments, that's kind of the overview of what people were saying and some of the trends and themes that picked up. We've got some comments to get into. The beer. How are you finding it? I'm loving it.
I'm loving it. I think that whole initial funkiness is starting to.
It's gone.
It's gone. You have to look for it a bit more. It's a very easy drink. It's almost. Do I feel like it's still it's more fruit now than the funk on the nose.
Now I know because I had a brief read of the description. This has been aged in red wine barrels.
Oh, I shall.
I am getting that on the nose.
So, all at once, there comes a wave of Brett-driven earthy aroma, a thrilling rush of roast malt, which I haven't had yet. Chocolate and deep forest, definitely getting the like the forest fruits kind of thing, and the powerful murmur of elegant French oak barrels. I mean, it's definitely got a bit of a vinous feel to it, as if you're having a nice red wine. That oak, I think, is adding to the dryness at the end as well. Suddenly, a beautiful dry finish cuts through the funk and leaves you wondering how we got the drop on you. Deploy the cloaking device and enjoy the element of surprise. It is really, again, the combination of flavours and aromas and what's going on in here is amazing.
It is incredible.
It's the fruitiness which I think is blowing me away on this beer, because I've had dark beers before which have those sort of elements of the dark fruits of the forest and the black forest gatto and stuff, but this is the smoothest version I think I've had of something like that.
Well, like I say, for me, I always balk at the word Brett and funk and everything like that, because I'm worried that I'm going to get exactly what I don't want from a beer. And yes, it's there on the nose, and it's there on the initial taste, but that description is spot on in terms of that disappears, then all of a sudden all of these other flavours come washing through, and you're just like, wow, where did all that come from?
It's been used as part of it. It's not been used as the overriding flavour and aroma, has it? The Brett is there, and I think, as we know from people who talk about recipes from 100 years ago, nearly all beers had an element of Brett in them, but they can't all have tasted of that overt, funky farmyard style. Otherwise, people, in my mind, would have stopped drinking beer, because you wouldn't have been able to handle it all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas this has just got hints of it at the start. You know it's there, but if someone had passed that to you maybe 5 minutes after they've opened it, would have taken a little while to hunt it down, I think.
I think
glass.
So. Yeah.
I think it's wonderful though. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, it's 10.5%.
And we've just got another glass out of it.
Yeah. Not feeling 10.5%, is it?
Strap yourself in, folks. Here we go. So, some of the comments we got this week. Miles Lambert, at Miles Lambert. Imagine going back and having your craft awakening beer again with no prior experience, but knowing that it was the start of your journey.
Because he did a follow-up comment, didn't he?
Yeah.
Saying, does everyone have a craft beer moment?
I think we'll save that one. We might that might be a show in itself for next season.
Maybe we could get involved, Miles.
Maybe let's come back to that one. I think the Littlest Homebrew at Littlest Home Brewer BRW. I'd like to retry some of the stuff I gave a 5 to on Untapped in my early craft beer discovery days in the context of what I've had since. Then goes on to talk about beers like Beavertown's New Zealand Phantom, Nogano's Citrus Hystrix, and Siren Tools 10-toe discount. That's interesting actually, because and this comment really did resonate with me, because I went through Untapped this week to get my list of beers that I want to talk about, and I used the filters. I downloaded the spreadsheet and used the filters in terms of what beers did I give a 5 to, when did I give it, and then started deleting beers off. So obviously, and were they one-offs? So obviously, I then deleted off all of the Cannonballs,
all of the Axe Edge,
and Halcyon. they all went. But then I was noticing that there were some beers on there that got a 5 in the early days. So I may have once given Hobgoblin a 5 on
okay, well,
Untapped.
Nice speaking to you, folks. The show's done. We're over. It's finished.
But then I went on to look at some of the other beers that I'd given 5s to, and I was like, yeah, maybe if I was to revisit those now.
Yeah, but I think when we spoke about Untapped, when we did the Untapped double header with Beernomicon, there was also a large element of the beer is of the moment. You rate
where are you when you're
as
drinking
of the moment.
it, yeah.
So you can expand that to now, where were you on your beer journey?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, Hobgoblin, you've already said, features, or did at least feature until recently, in your top 10, because it was...
I've been trying hard to get it out.
But it was always very easy to get hold of, Hobgoblin, especially in supermarkets.
Yeah.
And I know that even going to Butlins once a year with the guys, once I had decided that there's only so much Guinness one person can down in 3 nights, I did discover that they had Hobgoblin in bottles. And I was quite excited about that. And I was part of the way, fairly decent way into my journey, but I was still excited to see a Hobgoblin, partly based on what else there was available. But I probably would have rated it, if I look back, that would have been the highest rating you probably got, would have been that date, on that weekend, in that moment, because of all the other shit.
Because of where you were at the moment.
Yeah, I had to drink. So, I think, but I do like the idea about going back, and if you can get hold of the beers that you've given a 5 to, some of them you might not be able to get hold of, what you would do now. But I think it's definitely of a moment.
Absolutely, and again, no, for me, it just goes to show the versatility of Untapped in terms of it's more than just the rating system, because I was able to go in and I was able to download my entire check-in history.
No, it's not, because you don't check in every beer.
No, I don't, but I check in, I suppose, in terms of what we're talking about tonight. I would check in what I know is a one-off.
You're definitely checking your unique.
Yeah,
unique beers.
Absolutely.
Well, I think part of the fun of it is just seeing how I rate a beer 3 years down the road.
Well, I actually might do, based on that, I might do a little bit while we're off, while we're having our summer break. I might do a little bit of analysis on Untapped in terms of my Hobgoblin journey, to see how the ratings. See, first of all, where I was when I rated it a 5.
Yeah.
And maybe even go and buy a bottle of it now and see what I'd rate it at now, and do some sort of graph or chart or something. I don't know. Probably will never happen. So
I reckon you'll have a look.
I might do.
You'll have a look.
Now I've said it, it's going to happen.
Plus, you're going away later in August. You may end up in the type of place where you could end up being able to get hold of Hobgoblin.
I think so. I think that's more than likely. Anyway, let's get back into these comments. So Sean Smith at Plim Sean, unsurprisingly for people that have listened to the show before, Sean says can only be Siren and Michaela's Daydream, which we know Sean bought the entire UK supply of when it was available.
It's not the first time he's done that either.
It's not. So if people didn't manage to get hold of that, that's the
Sean.
reason why. But it was a great beer. I must admit, I enjoyed that beer. And again, and the next one's unsurprising as well. I was expecting at least one person to say it. Congratulations, Peter Sidwell. It was you. Punk IPA around 2012.
Now, I had Punk IPA around about 2012.
Oh, really?
But in bottle. Now, I don't know how that compares, because I must have had it before that, because when me and Clayton did our first in-the-house beer festival, so the first couple of beer events, we'd had Jeff Evans come in, well-known beer writer, does the bottled beer section in Beer Quarterly publication that comes with What's Brewing, done numerous beer books. I got him to come in, so it's quite formal, get it kicked off, all that kind of thing. Then we did our first beer festival where we just chose beers. And we had the 660 Bombers of Punk IPA. And it was the beer of the festival based on the fact that either people loved it or people hated it.
So it was really that divisive?
Oh, yeah. There was no
middle ground.
There was no middle ground on it. So that must have been around about the 2012. But ironically, when I was thinking about this whole subject, again, it was a beer I haven't had but wish I'd had, which is Punk IPA on cask.
Which I think a lot of people mentioned on one of the polls that we did a few weeks ago. Can't remember which one exactly, but a lot of people were saying about Punk on cask.
Yeah. And I've never had the chance, and it will probably take quite a cold day in hell for me to ever have that option again. So yeah, I have had Punk circa 2012, but I don't know if it was the same in the bottle as he experienced it on the keg. But I would have loved to have tried the cask version.
I think we all would. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know, we would all love to have tried cask Punk IPA.
Yeah.
Unless they bring it back as a one-off special for something you're never going to get to.
No,
which is kind of, again, is the theme of tonight's show.
Yeah, but they'll bring it back as the live version.
Don't. No. Moving on. So, and this next one's really interesting. Talking about beers coming back that we've seen before. Ben Lockwood at Loco 1912. The cask collaboration Herbalist from Magic Rock and Adnams. A stunning hoppy saison. He said he wrote happy, but I'm guessing he meant hoppy.
I reckon spell check kicked in.
Thankfully, it's making a return in 6 weeks. Now, this is the first I've heard.
First I've heard of that.
Of the Herbalist coming back.
Yeah, so I mean, we keep pretty close tabs on Adnams ourselves, and you do definitely on Magic Rock as well.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it. I mean, did you try it before?
I did, yeah.
I mean, I tried it on cask at the East Anglia Beer Festival a few years ago, and I was really wanting to love it because it had Magic Rock and it had Adnams.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
I went to, because they launched it at the Pelt Trader, and I went to the launch event. So I had it on day one release of it, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't, for me, it wasn't overly saison-y, so I was quite happy to drink it. I suppose you could say it was a cask saison, because I think it was a cask beer.
It was cask.
Yeah, and that the caskness brought more maltiness into it, which kind of took away from some of the funk.
Sort of overshadowed maybe some of the bits you're not such a big fan of.
Yeah.
But I'd love to try it again the second time round.
I wouldn't. If it's coming back, that's great.
Still no sign of my Magic Timmy collaboration, is it?
No, I'm not. That didn't even really get going, didn't it?
Try again. I'm going to try again.
Yeah. # Magic Timmy. If you really want to see Magic Rock and Timmy Taylor's
Who
collab.
doesn't? Come on.
So while we're talking cask collabs and just cask in general, Ian Sutton at Ian Sutton 12, Thwaites Wainwright pre-Marsdens. It is different and poorer, no matter what they both say.
So that bit was in brackets and is was in capitals, because obviously he was emphasising the bit where as soon as a brewery changes hands or moves premises, we all say it used to be better.
Yep.
So he's emphasising, he's going, it was better. It was different.
Yeah. And Boddington's Bitter on cask.
You see, I don't know if I ever had Boddington's proper.
I had... I used to drink a lot of bodies about 15 years ago.
So presumably that would have been bodies on cask.
No, it was like smooth flow. So but I still think that was that was when they were still Boddington's producing beer. It was still in the days of Melanie Sykes.
Do you want to flake with that?
Yeah, it was still back then. But Yeah, it would be. I mean, that's an interesting one in terms of beers changing as well. From again, it's that the first iteration of it was amazing, and subsequent rebrews haven't been quite as good.
That's been levelled at a number. I mean, Youngs have had that ever since they sold up and left Wandsworth, haven't they? And over it by Charles Wells. Now Charles Wells have sold it as well. So, ironically, to Marston's. So, people have said that since Young's moved on.
Yeah.
I mean, I can definitely go with that one because I don't think I've ever had. No, I can remember Boddington's bitter on cask. Same as you. I've definitely had it on Smooth Flow.
Yeah, I've never had it on cask.
Thwaites Wainwright. I don't know when Thwaites Wainwright became non-Thwaites, so I couldn't tell you. But I think I've only had Wainwright out of the bottle anyway.
Yeah, but while we're kind of skirting around again the beers being different from their first iterations, this next comment was an interesting one for me. So Nathaniel Fisher at Fan Nappy, a restorative beverage for invalids and convalescents by Brewdog. Now, I thought the first version of that was fucking amazing. It was one of the best beers that I drank that year when that beer was released.
When did it first come out?
2 years ago, so 2015.
I think my first iteration may have been last year.
And it was in bottle.
I had it in can.
It came back in can last year, and it wasn't a touch on that first year when it was released. So something had changed in the process there.
Speaking of Brewdog, none of the Born to Die came up, did it? I know they had different iterations, but it's not like someone said the first Born to Die or anything.
No, but someone did mention Stone's Drink By.
Oh, okay. Which is Born to Die
or Enjoy By,
isn't it?
Not Drink By, Enjoy By, yeah. So two more comments, and then we'll get into our views on this. The Owl Lady at the Owl Lady. Only recently, I've got my second and final can of White Cell in the fridge. Nice, linking into last week's show. Scared to open it because it won't happen again. Although following that comment, Simon Tidekin did come back and say, "Be careful what you wish for." But have generally been underwhelmed by limited releases. All hashtag FOMO and no trousers. Rainbow Project's case in point.
Okay.
Now,
are you going to leap in straight away, or should I let you pause for breath?
Let me pause for breath and compose myself and enjoy a little bit more of this beer.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, the White Cell is the beer we did last week from Time and Tide and Weird Beard. Ale Lady, open it.
Yeah, drink it.
Even if they don't do it again, right now it is tasting amazing. Generally underwhelmed by limited releases. I can understand where she's coming from because, again, harking back to one of the live shows that you did with Mark on the Beer O'Clock show, did about the whole thing at FOMO about collaborations and limited releases, and did the hype exceed, and a lot of the time it did. But what I would say since then, I would say a lot of collaborations have stepped up. I think collaborations have got better in a lot of cases. However, the Rainbow Project is something that I've never really been able to get excited about myself. What say you?
Well, actually, I'm not going to rage on it because I've mentioned it before. I've never got excited about the Rainbow Project because I have a lot of respect for the breweries that are involved in that, but I think it's nothing more than a vanity project. And from what I generally see on Twitter every year, is very much divided opinion between these beers are great, but the only reason they're great is because it's by these two breweries, versus, well, that's a bit shit, really, what they've produced.
Yeah, there's nothing because you can buy the cases.
Yeah.
Nothing has made me want to rush out and buy them.
No. And I think the only one, if you look back over all of the years of the Rainbow Project, the only beer that has come back time and time again has been the Hawkshead one, the Key Lime Tau, which had its third annual release this year. So that in itself would say that actually that was one success.
Yeah.
Of that, but on the whole, I don't buy into the Rainbow Project. I don't get excited by it. I do think it's a vanity project. on the collabs point, I did find myself getting very angry this weekend over a particular brewery advertising on their website that they would be selling an exclusive internet collaboration.
What the fuck's that?
I
mean,
know.
is that Gypsy Brewing by virtual?
I'm not sure, and I was like, really, you're now just using that as a sales point, that you're advertising that you've done this collab with this brewery in America via the internet.
Oh, that's rubbish. Surely that's no.
Yeah, so I did get quite angry about that, and a lot of people thought I was talking. I just want to clear this up. A lot of people thought I was talking about the Honest Brew Northern Monk collab, and it wasn't that one. And I'm going to be honest, it was Cloudwater advertising that they had done an internet collab with the other half, who they've been collabing with in person, but they've now done this collab that was an internet collab, but they felt the need to market it as such on their website, and I don't know why it needed that.
Not fussed about that.
No, I'm not. So, final comment from everyone this week. Oh no, actually, it's 2 more comments. Sorry. Gareth at Barrel Aged Leeds listed a whole load of beers. So, Brooklyn Monster, Brewery, Fruit, Magic Rock the Juggler. And I'm sure with this last point, he's literally just poking a stick at a bear.
Yeah, and I wonder which one of us he's directing this next beer at, Steve.
And the secret white wine barrel-aged cannonball you can only get on Leap Day at the tap.
Oh, now where is that at?
That doesn't exist. I don't believe that beer actually exists. I think he's just poking me with a stick. And then the final comment was from, and I think this is brilliant, and this does sum it up perfectly, Mark Bailey at Uproar 13, the first one. Which you can't argue with that, can you?
Well, if you turn it around to films, you can.
You can, but you know. So lots of great comments from people this week, and we're really grateful for everyone getting involved.
Some great shouts on different beers, though.
Not just this week, but through the whole season. You know, people have got involved in the polls, and they've shared their views, they've shared their opinions, and it's what makes this show what it is. Because without these views, we don't have our main part of the show. All you get is me and you talking about what we've been drinking, a bit of news, and then what picture do we like on Instagram?
This is, for me, this is the best bit.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, especially trying to keep up on a Sunday night and during the day on a Monday, when we get it all pulled together by the end of the day. You know, reading through this today, there's like a whole load of beers now which I didn't know existed. And now I know they might not exist again. And you've just all listed them for me.
It's the FOMO tingling.
Yeah, now
your FOMO senses tingling.
Now I really want to taste a whole load of them.
No.
But yeah, I mean, it's the numbers on the poll are less important to me than the actual the quantifiable comments we get. And I love reading the comments, and especially when people take a bit of time to expand on it as well.
It's great. It's great that people get involved.
Yeah,
and it's what makes this show what it is that listener engagement. Yeah. Without our listeners really engaging in what we do, we're stuck.
You'd only have a half-hour show.
You would.
So it's really only your own fault.
Yes, it's your own fault that we hang on and on. Right, shall we finish off this bit?
Yeah, finish off the bit. Still one more to go.
Yeah, brilliant.
I mean, again, we've demolished quite a lot of the cheese I'd sliced up for us. This beer especially seems to be going really well with the cheese.
This beer is, and without a doubt, getting better as it warms as well. I'm getting a little bit more chocolate, a little bit more roasted towards the end of it. Almost a little bit of a Black Forest Gatto coming through at the end there.
I'm getting more of that barrel now, that oak barrel towards the end. And the fruit is still there. The fruit is front and centre for me on this beer. Fruit is front and centre, and it's bloody delicious for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tasty stuff.
Yeah, I would quite happily have this beer if I was doing another beer and wine tasting at work and this was available, 6 of these. I would stand this up against a red wine quite happily.
Yeah,
without having to worry about it.
So yeah, and I've got to say once again, many thanks to Brooklyn for sending this over to us to try as part of this week's show. But really, if you see this, do not pass it by, because it is really one of those maybe once in a lifetime beers.
Would you age it?
I think you could age it.
Do you think the Brett would fall away a little bit and you'd miss out on that initial.
Well, it comes back to something you said earlier in terms of the heritage beers and the Brett in the heritage beers being used to help age them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it would fall away,
Because
or if it would continue to almost eat itself.
yeah, maybe because it's so well ingrained in the beer, but it would still hang around.
Yeah.
Hard to know really with that one.
It would be a great experiment to do, to come back to it in a year's time.
To see exactly the same iteration bottled at the same time.
Yeah, does it work? So, while you're pouring us our third and final beer this evening, which we'll explain to the listeners what it is at the moment, we've obviously got our lists of beers. Now, I know the question was which one beer. I couldn't have one beer. I ended up with a list of about 12.
Unsurprising, nor could I. So, okay, I'm going to hit off first.
Go on then.
The beer I would really... There's two beers I'd really love to try again.
Okay, am I going to get upset by one of them?
You might do. But both of them are cask.
Oh, in that case, no. Because for a minute, I would have put money on you saying that fucking beer that Justin bought to bottle share when I wasn't there.
No, that's not on the list. But
Really?
I did notice... well, I don't know if that's a one-off, because I did look at the website and they make a lot of them the same.
Okay.
But I noticed that Gareth at Barrel AG did say brewery through it, and I almost mentioned brewery beer again, but no, it's not. I would love... as far as in my head, my first pint of cask beer was at the Ipswich Beer Festival in 1987. However, I have no idea what that beer was.
Really?
No idea what that
Because
beer was.
Untapped didn't exist.
Because Untapped didn't exist. And
There we go.
I was
Untapped, ladies and gentlemen.
I was taken there by older guys at work who had a planned mission, and I was just along for the ride. And I have no idea what that first pint of cask was. So I'd love to have that beer again and know what
But
it was.
you can never go back to that moment.
No. And the other one is Tetley's on cask. So reiterating Ian Sutton's Boddington's Bitter on cask, Tetley's was the first cask beer I drank regularly.
And you've said that many times
Yeah.
before as well, haven't you?
When I was part of the pub quiz team, a few of the pubs in Ipswich who weren't dominated by Tolly Cobbled at the time, the owners of Ipswich Town Football Club, Tetley's on cask, and it worked beautifully for me. I could just carry on drinking that. Whether I answered any questions, I can't remember, but I definitely enjoyed the drinking the Tetley's cask beer. So the first two beers on my list would be cask beers. One, I've got no idea what it was, and the other one is Tetley's early 1990s.
Okay, so in that terms, as a counterpoint, if we're going to go with kind of, I suppose, beers of the moment, the two that I would counter that with was, one for me was an Adnams beer called East Green, which they only produced as a limited run.
Was that when they first reopened and they were doing the whole zero carbon?
Yes, it was, and it was to celebrate the new bottles that they had that were more
25%
lightweight,
less glass.
And it was a beer that I absolutely loved it, and it was amazing. And I think it might have been just slightly pre-Untapped for me, but it was one of those beers that is a real standout moment in my mind in terms of, I remember hunting that beer down. That was the first beer I hunted it down in bottle because I wanted to drink as much of it as I could get my hands on. So that's my first one.
And it was the only time they did it as well, wasn't it?
And they've no plans to bring it back. No, and I've tried badgering Fergus about it, and he was like, "No, it's not.
It's not happening."
But now Ed's there. I might try badgering Ed for a bit. And the other one, in a similar sort of vein, and this goes back to my very first visit to the Great British Beer Festival, was I got very excited to hear that one of the breweries had a 9% barrel-aged beer going live at 6 o'clock. So got in a queue for it and got a couple of thirds of this beer, only to find out it was the Fuller's Brewers Reserve, number 3. And it was just incredible, and it was my first taste of a barrel-aged beer. And I remember getting in that queue quite a few times after that. And I also remember I couldn't finish my last third of it, so I covered it in a tissue. I covered the glass in a tissue and wrapped an elastic band around it and put it in my bag and tried to get it home.
How successful was that?
Very unsuccessful.
Okay.
Everything in the bag ended up smelling like whiskey. It was it was brilliant, but you know, they're the two that really stand out for me in terms of their beers that I'm never going to be able to enjoy again.
So they're both from traditional regional breweries.
Yeah. Not from the craft.
Yeah. So our starting point.
It's traditional regional brewers.
Okay, so before we go any further, we should
let's
taste this
beer.
because it's settled a little bit.
Cheers. So this is our second Thornbridge beer.
Yeah, so this is another one which is part of your big beery night auction that you and Mars managed to get hold of. So this is the Imperial Oatmeal Stout. This comes in at 11%. Now straight away, it looks fantastic. Smells amazing.
I've already had a good sup while you've been talking there. I mean, that is so good.
That's brilliant.
That is all sorts of smooth, first and foremost.
Mouthfeel is lovely, isn't
It's thick, it's velvety. I mean, that is just... That is stunning.
So whereas the first two had a lot more of those layers going on. Now, I haven't read the back of this one at all yet. This one feels, and I might be wrong once I read it, a lot more straight down the line.
Yeah. I think this is exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah. It's bloody delicious right now.
Yeah, that's really good.
So next up for me, and this isn't so much a beer I can't have, it's more a moment I can't recreate.
Pardon me.
So a little bit of an expansion on the theme of what we were talking about, but I was just looking for and also Untapped doesn't really do a lot for me on this one because a lot of the beers I'm thinking about were pre-Untapped, especially for me. I've got a soft spot for a macro lager, one in particular, Amstel, because in the early 90s, me and 9 mates went to Rhodes for 2 weeks, and there was one afternoon where we found ourselves in, as far as I'm concerned, the shop which did the best kebab ever in my life, and we sat there eating kebab in the sunshine, drinking pints of Amstel in the afternoon sun. Probably not the best idea, to be fair. And ever since then, I've had a little bit of a love for Amstel. So Amstel, obviously, I can get hold of in numerous places, but I can never recreate that little moment I had with my mates. Some of them I still see. Most of us, I've got various types of friendships on social media. But we were all there. All 10 of us were there in this kebab shop in a midweek afternoon.
So that's about a beer in the moment.
Yeah.
Which is great because I've got one of those as well.
That would have, if I had an Untapped then, that would have been a 5.
And we've done no comparison.
No, we haven't talked about this at all.
But I've got one of those beers of the moment as well. And for me, my one is the Cigar City Invasion Pale Ale, which when after the 10-hour flight to the States last year and landing in the hot Florida evening, I found myself in a supermarket confronted by shelves of amazing beer, bought that beer and drunk it, and it was the greatest thing I'd ever tasted. And no matter how many times I may have that beer in the future...
And you bought some back, we did have it again.
Yeah, and even if it gets brought over here as fresh as you like, I'm never going to recreate that moment of cracking that can and drinking it and sitting down and being like, fuck me.
Basically, it went down like a can of Duff for Homer Simpson. Didn't it?
Absolutely, it was just amazing, and I know we've said this a few times that sometimes the environment adds to the beer experience.
But it's like, I can well imagine, having been to the States, not Florida, but you get off. It's a long flight with the family. You already knew that. Okay. Supermarket. There's going to be something there. Yeah. There's going to be something
because
there.
It's America.
It's America. I'm going to get this bit right. And then, you see this Pale Ale ticks the box for you.
Yeah.
Cigar City ticks the box.
Because it's the local one. It's the one that's been recommended.
Yeah. And then you take it home. It's cold. And it's gone in 2 gulps.
Yeah.
Is how I imagine that happened. And then you reach for the second one.
Yeah.
But you can't recreate that first moment again.
You're never going to recreate that again.
I think it's a good joke. That's what when I was going through in my head, it became that. It became not just so much those beers which some of those one-offs are almost easier for me to list that I've had that either may exist still, but in some far out part of the world that I was just lucky enough it came over on a one-off and I happened to be there to meet the brewer night or a tap takeover, but I'll never get that chance again, so it may still exist. But these, the beers we've mentioned so far and a couple of moments, they won't happen again.
No. I do have a second one as well.
You have a second moment?
Yeah. First time I visited Buxton, I was with Michael at H Doody, and it was the first time I met Conor Murphy as well. And we ended up in the tap house, and there was this, which I now know to be a key keg, sat in the fridge. And they were like, yeah, we're going to put that on soon. And I was like, well, what is it? And they was like, oh, it's very, very special. And I was like, well, yeah, but tell us what it is. And they was like, oh, it's a blend of two of our beers. And I was like, okay, well, what is it? And they was like, oh, yeah, it's a blend of Axe Edge and Black Rocks, which was, I think Black Rocks at the time was like a black IPA that they did, and Axe Edge obviously being their IPA. And we were literally like, when is that happening? And they were like, as soon as this beer finishes. We then proceeded to drain
all of that beer.
Unfortunately, and Connor will never forgive me for this, he had to get his train home before the fucking beer came on. But it ended up being amazing. It was just this kind of black and tan, essentially, and again, a lot of the moment about it, but it's an experience that you're never going to recreate because they've never recreated that beer. So you had to be there in that moment at that time to experience it.
Yeah, so it wasn't like it was a tap takeover.
Wasn't advertised. No. It was,
just happened to be.
Yeah.
In
it was
the
just something the
Buxton
brewers
tap
wanted
house
to do. Yeah.
At the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. Right time, right place.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think that's almost even better than turning up at something where you've heard about it. It might happen. Yeah. You just happen to be there.
And there's this amazing beer.
I bet you kind of got home and thought, I wish I'd missed my train.
Yeah, I bet so. So what? Any more? Yeah. You've got a few more on your list, yeah?
I have. I mean, obviously, a couple of ones I've mentioned with the Cloudwater Dipper, version 1, Can't Have, version 2 being the first one, and Three's Company. So Cloudwater, despite maybe not having quite the love now, feature quite heavily on beers I would have either liked to have tried or revisited. Unhuman Cannonball, I never had the first iteration of that, and now I can't. That's again gone. Watney's Red Barrel is the next one on my list.
Really?
Yeah.
So is that because of its cult status?
Yeah, it's simply because of its cult status, because anyone who's any sort of immersed in camera, and I'm, long-standing members, I've said many times before, Watney's Red Barrel is ubiquitous with the founding of camera. It was almost like the
reason for
being. Yeah. And even when it had a very brief cameo appearance in one of the episodes of Life on Mars once, it's like, oh, it's Watney's Red Barrel, and I'm thinking I still haven't had Watney's Red Barrel, and we sold Watney's Party 7s in the off licence. Obviously, I was too young for that, let alone getting the opportunity to go to a pub and try the Red Barrel. I would love to try Watney's Red Barrel as it was then, the keg bitter, just to know if it's as bad as everyone says it was.
Yeah.
Compared to the bitters that were on offer in the 50s and 60s. Because I only know what people say. I've got no idea.
You've got no reference there.
No reference point at all. I know what the pump clip looks like. I can picture the Red Barrel. Everything about it, apart from I've got no idea what it's going to taste like. That would be high up on my list of beers to try.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. Yeah.
A little bit off the theme because it's about one I could have again, but this is just one I would love to just try.
Yeah. I can. I don't know whether I share the enthusiasm for it, but I could see the reason for wanting to do it.
Yeah. It would almost be, is everyone right about what they're saying?
Yeah. On the Cloudwater thing though, I mean, again on my list I've got Cloudwater Dipper version 1 because I had that, and it was again 2015, and I had it. It was released in November, so it was quite a late release. But that ended up being my beer of the year for 2015 as well. That's how good it was. You know, it was a late release, but it went straight in. And again, on that theme, I also had, and on the theme of what a lot of people said, I also had Three's Company on my list in terms of it was a great beer. And I don't think we'll ever see it again as it was created.
No, I don't think we will. And I think that'd be
year.
a real shame because that, like for me, it ticks every beer box.
Yeah.
Everything I wanted to beer is in that one beer.
Yeah. And while we're also on that trip, Magic Rock, I've got a couple of Magic Rock beers on my list, unsurprisingly. Highwire Citra, they did a Citra that they went through a phase of doing single hop versions of Highwire. Now this wasn't for the thing that we went to
At the Cock Tavern.
at the Cock, which wasn't very good. Highwire Citra was amazing.
You're about to make me cry.
The aroma off of it, you could smell from the other side of the room. And I had it in, I was in the old fountain, they had it on, and literally, I was stood this side of the bar, they're pouring it, and I could smell it as they were pouring it. It went in about 4.
Okay, you are making me cry.
Yeah, sorry. The other one was the Salty Kiss Lime version that they did.
That is actually on Untapped. That is still there on Untapped.
Yeah, which was essentially like a beer version of tequila, and it was amazing. It was, and I travelled all the way to some obscure bar in Clapham Junction to drink that beer.
And they've said they're never going to do it again.
They've said they're never going to do it again. And then the last one, this is probably, and I'm building up to my one beer now.
Okay.
That I've had, and I fear I'm never going to get to drink it again. Was Magic Rock Strongman, which
Don't know that one.
It was so that in the year that they first produced Unhuman Cannibal, that was number 1 in their big bottle series. Number 2 was Bald and Barrel Aged Bearded Lady, and number 3 was Strongman in terms of their big bottles. Now, as far as I can remember, Strongman was the same recipe, or it might even have been a percentage of Unhuman Cannibal, which was then aged to become a barley wine. So it was essentially a Magic Rock barley wine. I bought it in the year it was released, and I drank it that Christmas. I am devastated I didn't have the knowledge to just leave that in my cupboard.
Yeah, but did you enjoy it?
It was fucking amazing.
Well, there you go. So in that case, for you drank it at its peak.
But unless Magic Rock have plans to ever bring back Strongman, I'm never going to get to try that beer again.
Yeah, but sometimes I think you could just leave them. I mean, that goes back to the whole...
I want to try it again, goddamn.
No, what I mean is that you enjoyed it there and then.
Yeah.
You could age it, and by then you've tried more vintage ales, more barley wines. It may not hit the same mark.
Maybe, because it was early on in the journey, so maybe it was the first time I'd experienced anything like that, but...
I remember the first time I tried Fuller's 1999, 2 or 3 years ago. It was at a Colonel cheese and beer thing. I think it was I got an invite from Des DeMoore. He'd done a couple of beer tastings and worked for us. He said, "Do you want to come down for this?" I said, "Yep." No idea what was going on. And he just said, "It's at Colonel." Yep, okay. It says beer and it says cheese. It's at Colonel. And Des shared a 1999 vintage ale from Fuller's, which I know you can still get a hold of, but effectively...
It's going to cost you a couple £100.
It's going to cost you a lot of money to get hold of it. And I thought it was just bloody amazing. Just there and then. But I also think vintage ales, when they're fresh, if they're well made, they're still good beers.
I do enjoy, with the Fuller's beers in particular now,
drinking them fresh.
Trying to buy 3.
Yeah.
And I buy one drink now, one drink a year after, which it's becoming our traditional Christmas show.
And then one
further
down the line.
Whenever.
Yeah.
So have you got the one beer?
Well, I suppose the one beer for me, I mean, it's, like I said, as much as I want to do those couple of beers on cask, it would be the Three's Company.
Again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to have a case of freshly brewed Three's Company in the house right now. I would just put it all in the fridge.
Do you want it in bottles or cans?
Bottles. Definitely in bottles. I used to like the cold water bottles. The labelling was nice.
Yeah.
Especially that, and that one had the little magic rock bit on the background as well.
That label was beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it was a coming together of, like you say, the established craft brewery and the new upstarts.
Yeah. And the artwork mirrored that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've about done that.
Yeah, definitely. But it's really enjoyable actually, and I know we both expanded it a little bit with the moment we had the beer as well. Very enjoyable look back actually at some of the beers I've had in the past and some of the beers I had long time ago. I enjoyed that.
I could very much dig into my Untapped history, I think, to really do something there.
Yeah, I think part of it is the feeling, isn't it? Like I said, for me, Tetley's Cask and the first beer I had at the Ipswich Beer Festival, I can picture myself at the Ipswich Beer Festival, but I could have no idea because it's just barrel upon barrel, and you can picture every Canberra Beer Festival. It's just single barrels, isn't it?
Yeah,
with some sort of labelling on the front.
You've no idea, have you?
I have no idea. Maybe somewhere in boxes at my mum and dad's or mine. There's an Ipswich programme, and I've marked it.
Maybe.
But I doubt it.
I doubt it. Not back then.
I doubt it in the 80s. I did that.
Thoughts on the beer then?
I'm fucking loving this.
This is really good, isn't it?
I mean, this is the third beer we've had tonight. This is the second of the Thornbridge ones you've been kind enough to share, and the first one was beautiful. There was so much going on in that first beer. This one feels like it's got less going on, but it's one of those ones where less is more.
Okay, so rather than read the whole back of the label, things that stand out here, this was aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels.
I can get a bit of that.
For 6 months, lending their unique influence to the final flavour. Conditioning was then finished in the bottle, again using champagne yeast.
Oh, I wouldn't have definitely picked up the last bit, but the bourbon.
Yeah.
Bourbon.
I said it wrong.
Okay.
For those that are counting, it was me this time. Anyway, let's move on and let's see what our listeners have been saying this week.
Let us know, write it down. Let us know, write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
So, first of a couple of comments this week, the Owl Lady at the Owl Lady was saying, I just think these fruity beers are going way too far now, trying to appeal to a new audience but forgetting their loyal one, #Hopinions.
Steve, what have you got to say about that?
I think people know what I've got to say about that.
Oh, go on, but say it again, it's the last show of the season.
Oh, fucking Merc. Honestly, for fuck's sake, can we just have nice, clean, crisp, clear West Coast IPAs again, please?
And I think going back to the poll, Freeze Company sort of shouts out.
Yeah.
There's no murky beers in that poll.
There are not murky beers, and I give it, in 10 years' time, people aren't going to be looking back going, oh, do you remember that murky fucking thing we had back in 2017?
Or they might go, yeah, wasn't it god awful?
Yeah, wasn't it just like every other beer that was being produced at the time? Possibly. The Owl Lady again, and a few people picked up on a comment last week. So first of all, the Owl Lady at the Owl Lady started 12 beers of Christmas. I might have finished. Steve, you're not alone. Opinions, peaked too soon. Need to make room.
But like I say, he wasn't the Owl Lady wasn't the only person.
No, Miles Lambert at Miles Lambert, and yes, I've been thinking about my 12 beers of Christmas since January.
This is just wrong.
It's not wrong. It's just good planning.
No, but you can have your cellar beers. The Owl Lady and Miles and you all have your cellar / cupboards. You could pick out your 12 beers of Christmas a night before.
Well, I've got 18 on my list at the moment.
How's that 12?
Well, no, it's a squad. I have to get it down to a team of 12. In the old days of football, 18 was a squad, wasn't it? And then you had 12. You had 11 and a sub. You had one substitute when only one substitute.
So yeah, it's a team of 12. Yes.
Yeah. And then finally, Kevin McLean at KJ02MCL. Realise I'm a few weeks late, but my tuppence worth #Opinions, and this is about tap rooms.
This was our pubs and tap room discussion, wasn't it?
It was. So Kevin said the pub is about having the usual. about the bar staff knowing your name, about recognising others in the bar, about being comfortable enough to pop in and have a few with a book, somewhere where you are likely to have memories of great nights as well as quiet nights. At least that's what my local pub is to me. That opening statement has almost put goosebumps on my arm.
Yeah.
That is just so heartfelt,
It's
isn't
almost
it?
poetic.
Yeah. The tap room, in my opinion, is a different beast. It's a destination. It should be an experience. It's about discovering a brewery's best, newest and most experimental. It's about the bar staff knowing intimately and being invested in the product they are serving. Is the tap room the new pub? No. They are completely different and should remain so. I love both.
I agree with all of that.
I do. You cannot disagree with a thing that he said there.
No.
Kevin, that is brilliant. Thank you so much for your input.
So we should get his the beer he really wants to try again sometime around the start of season 4.
Absolutely, which we'll read out then. We should probably start wrapping this thing up about now, mate.
Yep.
It's time for the prizes prize. Who is taking home the final box this year? Who gets the school hamster for the summer?
Annoyingly, someone we know. Not you.
Oh.
Sorry.
How well do we know them?
Very well. It's 1970s boy who's been away for the last week or so, and apparently it's a family holiday.
It's been away for the last year or so,
Which,
some would say.
Yeah, but that's been home furnishings. He's been away with the wife and the kids. He's doing a bit of a Central Eastern Europe tour, which seems to only be taken in craft bars.
Okay.
And so this picture has really appealed to me because he's managed to get a picture of a craft bar from the door back to the bar. No one else is in it. And for me, as soon as I would see that, I would just want to run straight to that bar.
That's a really nice picture.
Loads of colours. The seating looks lovely. Nice little pathway through the middle. Seats at the bar. And then I can just see these taps and handles.
Yeah.
And bottles all on the shelves.
He's timed that really well as well.
Yeah. Oh, perfect timing.
Yeah.
So yes, 1970s boy, Justin Mason, you are the person who holds the hamster for the whole of the summer.
Brilliant.
Make sure our box is in one piece when it comes back.
Absolutely.
I don't want it to be a dead box.
While we're off air, while we're off air, that the beer's beginning to take effect. We're still going to be looking at pictures. You can still put them on Instagram. Still use the hashtag Cheers, guys. But we won't be selecting a beer for a
box,
a picture.
Justin has the box for the whole summer, but please carry on putting them on there.
Still put your pictures on Instagram. Still use the hashtag Cheers, guys, and we will find them and we will look at them and we will love them. If you want to get involved in anything we've said this evening, still carry on sharing thoughts about those one-off beers that you've had, what you're drinking over the summer, any questions you might have for us.
Or even those moments where you've had a beer which you can still get. Let us know.
Yeah. Just tweet us, use the hashtag Opinions, and we'll find it. I'm not going to bang on about the survey this week, mate, because we're done with the survey.
Yeah, the surveys, but thank you to everyone who has contributed to the survey.
Yes.
We've had some really good feedback, and we'll be going through that. We've got a summer summit coming up.
We do have a summer summit where we have an agenda and all sorts of associated papers to go with the agenda.
I've killed a whole rainforest printing off the papers for said summer summit.
So that's what we're going to be doing in terms of looking forward. But what's coming next? What can people expect from us over the summer, mate?
Obviously for me the next exciting bit is the second opinions on film.
Yes.
So the aforementioned beer merchants have supplied us with a beer-themed box of 8 beers to accompany the film which won the poll,
which was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. So in the next few days, me and Steve will battle our way through the box while watching the film.
Such hard work. Sometimes.
Whether we can provide you with a killer fact like we did last time is just another matter. I don't know.
Oh, well, you mean the 6 minutes? The real-time 6 minutes?
6 minutes. I can't believe this hasn't become a world phenomenon.
I still can't believe we're the only people to have ever found that.
Yeah.
I
think we need to get in touch with Spielberg and Lucas to find out if that really was on purpose.
Intended.
It's got to have been,
it
hasn't it?
Must have been, yeah.
So we're going to be doing Raiders of the Lost Ark, so looking forward to that. And also during the summer, my co-host bravely went to Fuller's all on his own.
It was a hard trip, but I
had to walk around with Fuller's with Georgina Young, head brewer, blah blah blah. tasted some beers, blah. And I have listened to the show, and it's a fantastic interview with Georgina. I think you'll really enjoy that, and that will be out during the summer as well.
Sorry, I'm just
Sorry, Steve, just finishing off the last of the cheese there.
Yeah, so, and then we are back for season 4 on the 14th of September.
Yep.
We'll be recording a few days before that. But
so it's a bit of a break, but you won't be able to forget about us completely.
And that's kind of our birthday show as well that we're gonna
so
do.
we'll just be
hoping
a year
to line up
into it
something
then.
special.
Yeah, so
for that.
We'll let you know what it is, but we're not going to tell you just yet.
No, absolutely not. So for now, we're going to finish off this amazing,
wonderful Imperial Oatmeal Stout.
Thornbridge Hall. I can't even speak. Fuck it. You know what? This season's been absolutely amazing. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.